The entire thing with the Middle East is getting completely out of control. I was trying to do some research to figure out where are we and how have things gone since the MOU blew up, and it's really hard because there's been so much activity. I wanted to kind of go through sort of where we've been. Analysts keep talking about the fact that the US strikes Iran and Iran does a tit for tat and they go back and forth and it's like a volley. But I feel like things have just absolutely exploded. The first thing I want to talk about that I just saw, reported via Press TV, which is Iran's media, I believe. They reported that the IRGC announced that in response to U.S. attacks on facilities under construction and civilian areas, it launched several cruise missiles at the central data infrastructure of the American company Amazon in Bahrain, causing significant damage. That's huge. Most of the strikes, from what I can tell, pretty much for the whole time that we've been in this situation since February 28th, Iran has struck military targets. They have not purposely struck civilian infrastructure, as far as I could tell, or as far as I've heard. So this is huge. And people that I have been listening to I would say probably from the beginning of this whole situation, said that if the U.S. continues to escalate these strikes, that eventually this is where Iran is going to get. They're going to start attacking all these AI companies that are in the Middle East, I think in Bahrain, and then UAE has several, from what I can understand. So this is pretty intense. If I were an American AI company with a location in the Middle East, I would be very, very concerned. The other thing that they announced, which is also to me very concerning, the IRGC Aerospace Force announced that they attacked a complex housing U.S. military personnel in Jordan, in the Al Raqqa area, killing several of them. The fact that that Iran is now announcing that they are purposefully striking facilities where U.S. troops are housed is also very troubling and signifies to me a huge escalation. Obviously, when they attacked Jordan last week, one of the bases, and the U.S. confirmed that two service persons were killed, and I think a third missing, and then I have it in here somewhere I'll get to. Trump obviously used that as an escalation, and, sort of, I'll go through it because I have a kind of a sort of tit for tat strike list of kind of what has happened over the last few weeks. But that was a huge thing with Trump, and the fact that the IRGC is specifically saying that they are targeting U.S. troops is very troubling. Very, very troubling. I'm concerned with what the United States is going to do. I mean, they're hitting Iran hard, very hard. They've already hit at least close to one nuclear facility. They've hit another one that recently, I think it was on the 19th, that is under construction. So at least that wasn't in operation, and it wasn't operating. But, we're seeing the U.S. strikes getting more severe. But really, I mean, they did attack the bridges, which I think the U.S.'s position is those are military targets. But I think, and I think that's, sometimes what might look like a civilian target, if it's also used by the military, an army may be able to justify from a war crime standpoint that it's a sort of a dual use target, and therefore it's not a war crime. So I don't know, but I'm very concerned. I am very, very concerned, and also with the Houthis announcing that they are going to blockade the Red Sea from Saudi oil ships coming down through the Bab el I think it's, what is it called? The I have it here somewhere. It's not a, it's a word that doesn't come right to me. The Bab el Mandeb Strait. So that's obviously a huge escalation. If they're able to do that, that means the Strait of Hormuz, which has all the Gulf oil, and Saudi also is blocked from using that. But Saudi has a pipeline across. I guess it's east to west pipeline that comes out at the Red Sea at a port, and then they've been transporting some of their oil through the Red Sea and down through the Bab el Mandeb Strait. I think about 4 to 5 million barrels a day, which is material. So with the Houthis threatening a naval blockade of that is also a huge escalation, and it's going to increase our already problematic limitation on the supply of crude oil on the market. The market last night, when that happened, didn't really respond all that much, but I checked at noon, and I think it had gone up. Let's see where it was. Well, I'm going to check my app. But at noon, it had gone up to, let's see, I think crude, let me get that, sorry. I think crude had gone up to 84.5, $84.50, which is only 2.5% increase. I would have expected more than that. Let's see where it is now. I'm going to see. I don't know. It's only 84.37. So it really hasn't gone up that much, but those are futures. So we've seen so much manipulation in the futures market that a lot of people have reported on. I would expect by now that the crude futures would be well over 100, like we saw at the beginning of the war. So I don't know. But then there's a difference between the futures price and then actually the price on the ground, like what it is today when they're buying it. And I think there's a huge spread. So I personally don't track that. But anyway, so I just wanted to report those two things that have happened today that jumped out at me. And I kind of want to go back and talk about this sort of tit for tat that's been going on since the MOU blew up. And what it looks like to me is it's just getting more severe. I feel like initially Iran wasn't necessarily matching the U.S. strikes. At least it looked that way to me. Now, I don't have access to that great of information. But even going back and looking at what the U.S. reported they hit, and then kind of looking at Iran's response, especially at the beginning. So Iran's response seemed to be a little bit more limited, and the U.S. started out on the 7th and the 8th with at least they reported 80 to 90 targeted hits and really went hard, and it seemed to me that Iran was a little more limited, didn't hit all of the GCC countries of the U.S. bases and all of the GCC countries. At this point, they've definitely ratcheted that up, but at the beginning, and maybe they had some hope that they would get back to the MOU, that maybe that whole thing that was happening. The first few months of the war, that people would call it Taco Tuesday, where Trump would announce, "Oh, we're in negotiations, we're going to have a deal," and usually it would be Sunday before the market opened. But that has not happened. We have had no Taco Tuesdays. So I haven't, it just doesn't seem to me like there's any efforts at the moment for there to be any negotiations. But although I will say there is a report that the Iranian, I don't know if it's the full negotiating team. I think it's Foreign Minister Arachi. I think he is in Islamabad in Pakistan with the mediators. But, I don't see there any chance at this time for there to be any ceasefire. And one thing I was thinking, why is it that Iran's rhetoric has gotten so much stronger than it was before? And I think perhaps maybe part of it is during the late Ayatollah's funeral processions, they had allegedly huge crowds in the street, maybe 10 million or more. And it seems like the Iranian people are more consolidated behind the government. And also, they had funeral processions in Iraq, and there were supposedly huge crowds there too. So it may be that they feel more confident that they have the consensus of the population behind them and the support, so that they don't have to rush to a ceasefire negotiations quickly. There was a lot of criticism by hardliners when they did enter into the MOU with the United States, apparently. So I'm thinking those people are actually pretty happy now. I mean, they want revenge. We killed their Ayatollah, their supreme leader, and his family. So, I mean, I think, if a country did that to us, to our leader in the United States, I mean, I think we would want revenge. And wasn't that what 9/11 was about? So I can understand. I mean, I can understand. I don't like it, and I hate war, but I can certainly understand. So anyway, so I want to kind of go back and talk about this tit for tat. And I said, I was asking, Grok can make memes if you don't know this. And, I'm not creative, so I can't come up on my own and design one. So I sometimes, say, Grok, make this meme for me. And so I had asked him, I'm like, can you make a meme? I wanted a tennis match between Trump and the younger Moshtaba, I think his name is, Khomeini, the new Ayatollah, supreme leader, and a tennis match, on both sides, and they're actually hitting missiles back and forth. And Grok told me he couldn't do that he can't make violent memes. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. And I was like, all right, well, come up with something, Grok. He's like, I can make them funny. I can do whatever. And so he came up with one and he put a chicken in it. I'm like, okay, that's not even funny. So I had him put one. I said, okay, put in chili peppers. And, because I thought, well, there's an association with tacos. And anyway, so you'll see. I think it's on my thumbnail. I put it. I'm going to use that in my thumbnail. I did not come up with that. That was Grok. It's not great, but it's good enough. Anyway, all right. So yeah, so this tit for tat and no taco day. So after the MOU blew up, I guess in the sense that the United States had enough of Iran hitting ships that were going along the Oman Strait, which I had talked about in my previous video. The United States had enough, and on the 7th and the 8th, they hit Iran hard. So it was reported that there was 80 to 90. Again, this is United States reporting it. So 80 to 90 targeted hits, including air defense, coastal radar, anti-ship missiles. Apparently they struck over 60 RERGC small boats along the southern coast. They hit Qasem Island, Bandar Abbas, and I think it's called the Syriac area. I'm not really sure what that is. And from what people were talking about, it looked like what the United States was focusing on is weakening the area by the Strait of Hormuz. But it seemed like, at least what was reported, it was a pretty large attack. Nothing like we had seen back in the first stage of this war, but certainly more significant than we had seen sort of the tit for tat before. Because even when there was supposedly a ceasefire and the MOU had been signed, there were some back and forth, but that wasn't, it was like a little here and there. That on the 7th and 8th was very strong compared to that. So in response to that, Iran hit Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar. I'm not really sure about Qatar, but that's what Grok told me, and Jordan in that time frame, apparently. Allegedly, let's say allegedly. Some of it's difficult to really kind of get all this information together and confirm, and I did the best I could. But I don't recall at the time people reporting on these strikes being all that severe, other than maybe Jordan. I think there was allegedly 10 ballistic missiles claimed, but that was earlier. I think there was only one casualty reported, one in Kuwait, but that was from shrapnel. So apparently there were no casualties in Jordan at that time, and the damage was nominal. So that was reported. Now, if it's coming from the United States, they usually underreport the damage, and Iran probably overreports the damage. So, fog of war, it's kind of hard to know, what exactly is going on. So the next thing, though, on the 9th, which was a pretty big escalation by the United States. So they struck near the perimeter of the Bashar nuclear power plant, which is a pretty huge escalation and very problematic. I don't believe they damaged it, but just the fact that they had a strike that was close to it is very problematic. And then they hit a military base in Shogadak, and it says a fishing pier. I don't know why they would hit a fishing pier. But there was no damage reported to the nuclear reactor and no casualties at the plant itself, which is good. The U.S. had described that apparently as a military target. I'm not really sure exactly how they would refer to the working nuclear power plant as a military target, but okay. So Iran responded again, hitting Kuwait, Bahrain, and then again it said Qatar. I think what they're saying was hit in Qatar is an early warning radar site. I feel like at the beginning, even at this point, this is like the first week after the MOU blew up. I think they were taking it pretty light on these bases. In Kuwait, they allegedly hit some Patriot systems, but there's not a lot. I mean, I would have to really go back and dig in, but the people that I'm listening to, the geoanalysts and who had military people on, nobody was overly concerned about these strikes on either side, actually. But again, this is a week after the MOU blew up. But and then there were some strikes on between the 12th and the 15th, and I don't think any of them. Let me see, what were those? The U.S. is basically targeting coastal defenses, missile drone site surveillance, command facilities, And that's also when Trump reinstituted the naval blockade to the Strait of Hormuz, because Iran had closed it. So that's kind of the status of the Strait of Hormuz is a separate topic that I may or may not get to today. But effectively, it's closed. I mean, I think there are some ships getting through. There are ships that are still trying to get through the Oman side, and Iran, the IRGC continues to strike them. I think two yesterday or the day before. I believe they were. And I think there were Greek ships. I mean, we've had even two ships that even caught on fire and sank, allegedly. So that's still going on. But I don't believe there's much. There are many oil tankers getting through the strait. So anyway, but I think what I really want to talk about. So around the 16th to the 18th, which is not that long ago, there was huge escalation. So all of a sudden, we've seen huge escalations on both sides. The United States, that's when they struck the bridges, and allegedly they hit 6 bridges. And again, I believe those are on the southern, around the southern coast area, and I think some of those bridges lead to a naval base that allegedly the IRGC uses to monitor the Strait of Hormuz. But there was a lot, and they also struck a railway. I believe the railway was in the northern part of Iran. I think I'll have to confirm that, and the Chabahar port tower, which I understand that actually is not a military target. It's used for commercial shipping. Although, again, things can sometimes be dual use, and it can be argued that they are military sites, which I'm sure the United States will argue that, or has argued that. But one of the biggest strikes was that Iran hit a desalination plant and a power in a power complex or power facility, and I believe that was on the 17th. So the desalination plants is a big deal. Most of the GCC countries rely on desalination plants because they don't have clean water. They're in the desert and there's no way to get clean water, and so they use these desalination plants. And I recall early on people talking about the big threat to the GCC countries if Iran attacks their desalination plants, because then there's no water. And I was really surprised to see that the United States actually hit a desalination plant in Iran. And because, we certainly saw this before the ceasefire with the MOU. This tit for tat way of conducting war, if you will, has been going on from the beginning. So when the United States hits a certain type of target, Iran matches it. It tried not to escalate it, but it matched it. And so when I saw that, and many people have talked about this, when I saw that the United States struck a desalination plant, I thought, this is very dangerous. And it makes me wonder, to me, because a lot of the attacks, all of the attacks, or the, whether it's retaliatory, and how is it? At what point do you say is something retaliatory? It's like so many strikes are going back and forth, right? So it's hard to match them up because so much has happened. But most of the Iran strikes are against U.S. Military bases across the GCC. They, for the most part, limited it to that. Or at the beginning, we saw they did strike hotels in the UAE, which was very shocking. But apparently, the U.S. personnel had been, or let's say allegedly, U.S. personnel had been moved from the base to the hotels, and somehow Iran had the intelligence that that had been the case, and so they were targeting U.S. personnel in those hotels. But for the most part, I would say that most of Iran's strikes have been on U.S. military assets or U.S. assets. And so the fact that the United States struck this desalination plant in Iran, I was like, oh, that's not a good thing. So, of course, what happened? Iran's response. So Iran hit power plants or facilities as well as desalination plants in Kuwait. And Kuwait is getting hammered. Bahrain is too, but the fact, I don't believe they've hit desalination plants in Bahrain, but they did in Kuwait. And so, and they may have hit two. I'm not sure. I think they may have three, but Iran did significant damage to the water supply, basically, in Kuwait. I don't think that the damage to the power facility or ability to generate power was as bad, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, so this on the 17th, also in response to the United States attack, they also hit Saudi, which I think that was the first time in this new phase that they actually hit Saudi. They hit near the I think Al-Karari, I don't know if that's correct, Karaj base, and they hit Syria at the Al-Tanf. It says the Al-Tanf garrison, and I remember that one. That was really significant back in the days of the U.S. supposedly fighting ISIS in Syria, when in fact they were actually working with ISIS, and I think they were actually housing some ISIS there. So I don't know. Iran has claimed that they actually killed people in Syria, U.S. Personnel. The United States has denied that. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I mean, I had heard reports that we had withdrawn everyone from there. I mean, we could have contractors or something. And I don't think the United States counts contractors that are killed as fatalities. I think I could be wrong, but I think they only include actual people that are actually working, enlisted or, officers for the U.S. Military. But that's my guess. So, yeah, so back to Jordan. So we had those two service members killed, one missing, four wounded. And then in Kuwait, I don't think did we lose anybody in Kuwait? Let's see. No, only infrastructure damage. And then again, Iran claims that U.S. personnel were killed in Syria. The United States denies that. Who knows? I believe firmly the United States is hiding the number of casualties, both dead and injured in this war. But eventually we will find out. And that's kind of how it always is. I think that seems to be standard operating procedure for the U.S. military. And I think in every war, that's what people say. So I don't know. But I haven't read it yet, but the Intercept apparently published an article today about that, about the probably the fact that the U.S. is hiding fatalities and et cetera, but I have not read it, so I can't say, but I would not be surprised, So anyway, so as, since the 18th, it just gets more and more escalated. And so the United States on the 19th struck another nuclear power plant in Iran, but this one was actually not completed. So the Darkovan nuclear power plant, and Iran has actually sent a formal letter to the United Nations Security Council, basically, I guess, telling on the United States for doing this. Fortunately, it wasn't completed, so I'm guessing it's not, any damage isn't going to cause any nuclear fallout. But, I think it's obviously a civilian target. And so, and there have been, the United States continues to hit the southern part of Iran, pretty significantly. A lot of people that I listen to are looking at the strikes by the United States and they think that the United States is getting ready for a ground invasion to try to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. Most estimate, or that's not going to be possible, and we're going to lose a lot of soldiers. But it looks like just the way they're trying to weaken, they're hitting all the various radars and surveillance sites and the maritime capabilities along the southern part of the strait. That looks like what they're trying to do. I hope they don't. I don't. Obviously, I don't want to. I don't want to see any U.S. soldiers killed. This is a useless war. It's also illegal. I don't know. Trump had a chance to end it. I don't understand why he's continuing. And we're only going to lose more and more service people. And for what? For what? Now, because he did this war, the strait is closed. The strait was open before this. And I think his ego is in the way. And I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares about our service personnel. I don't think he cares about the Gulf countries. I don't know what he cares about. At this point, it may just be his ego. And he knows he's lost. And so he's just going to continue to make it worse and worse. Barring dropping a nuclear weapon on them, and I hate saying that, I don't think he can win this. Iran is too big, has too many people, and clearly has a lot of missiles. The fact that, Trump has said months ago, oh, well, we've depleted their missiles, and their Navy, which is complete BS. They're still hitting us and doing a lot of damage to our bases. Clearly, they have plenty of missiles, and the fact that anybody would even believe him, and he still says these things, it's just shocking to me. It gets me upset. I'm trying not to be upset. So anyway, let me go back. I digress. Back to the, where we are now. So, the U.S. continues to hit Iran. This goes on every night. It's like a tit for tat every night. And so Iran has, upped the ante, has just, continued to pound Kuwait. This a statement today by the IRGC, said their goal is to clear the area, the whole entire area of radar and air defense systems and pave the way for broad missiles and drone attacks and to complete the blackout of the Americans' enemy radar network. So that's what they're doing right now, which if you look at their strikes, it's clear that that's what they're doing. But apparently they're doing that so they can hit them harder. And I think their goal, they want to completely destroy all the bases along the Persian Gulf, the U.S. bases. And I think that's their first. I think that's the stage they're in right now. So, they've hit, just in the last 2 days, they've slammed, it's the Arifjan camp base. They have hit, I guess, the HIMARS missile system there. They are going after the administrative building and directional finding antennas. And like I said, the HIMARS system. And apparently they use surface-to-surface missiles. I'm no expert on weapons, so that doesn't mean all that much to me. And they're also going after U.S. long-range radar sites, all the communication centers, satellite reception, missile defense radar stations, and that's at that base. And then the Ahmad al-Jabir Air Base. They've targeted the early warning radar, missile defense radar system, a radar called AN/FPS-117. I don't know what that is. They're going after Patriot defense satellite, Patriot defense systems and satellite communication support, system support defense. And then there's this Camp I think it's Udari, which I think has been renamed Camp Bureng. They went after a helicopter parking lot, allegedly. Again, I have to say allegedly. This is what the Iranians are reporting. So I can't, obviously, I don't know if that's true. I'm not on the ground to say for sure. But they're doing this in response to the strikes the day before, which is this is how it's going, back and forth. But they're definitely doing at this point, they're doing a lot more damage to Kuwait and Bahrain and Jordan. So I'm kind of surprised that there's anything left because they've been striking these bases. But again, I don't know how I think they may just be like little targeted. So also at the Ali Al Salam Air Base, they went after an MQ-9 drone hangar. And they also, which was another thing that was troubling, the IRGC, or through Press TV, which is, I look at their Telegram channel because it's an easy place to just sort of see like, okay, what's going on quickly. And they also, they highlight that this base hosts U.S. troops. So they know where the troops are. And the fact, again, that they seem to be actually targeting those troops at this time is very, very concerning to me. Obviously, I don't want our service members to be killed. And for what? Whose war is this after all? Israel isn't even fighting. Israel is like doing whatever they're doing in Lebanon, which is illegal. Well, no, it's not. Actually, let me clarify that. It's not now because the president or prime minister of Lebanon said they can be here. So it's not illegal. But, they've tried to oh, sorry, too busy in Lebanon, can't help you. Even though, Trump is trying to get them to, but, they're the ones that started this whole thing. It's kind of like we've been left with the bag. And, Trump is so stupid. He just continues this, I guess, because his ego is so big. I don't even know. I'm furious. I'm still furious, but I'm trying to not be furious. I don't like to be furious. It's just not healthy. Anyway, so let's get back. So Bahrain, they've really, hit a lot. The U.S. Radar installation at the Muharraq base, I'm assuming that's what it's called, U.S. Patriot air defense system in Rifa. And that was yesterday. And today, again, as I reported earlier, that they've hit Amazon facilities. And they've also targeted the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters again, which I think they've done several times. So I would love to see reliable and satellites of what is actually there, or I should say credible satellites, because they've been striking the Fifth Fleet for months. So, and they're still, so I don't know what's left. I'm assuming that the U.S. is still using them to attack Iran. If they weren't, I don't know that Iran would spend all this time in missiles and drones continuing to attack these U.S. bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. And so Jordan, again, another attack. Yesterday, they said they hit, Iran said they hit the missile defense radar system and F-15 jet inside a hangar. One F-15 jet inside a hangar. I'm like, okay. There was also reports today that Iran struck Qatar, but I have no information about what that possibly the target in Qatar could have been and if there was any damage. And so I also saw today that the U.S. is continuing its strikes, and they have attacked I don't know. Bear with me on this pronunciation. Karamabad in Iran. It's in the South Lorestan province. I have no details. I do not know the significance of that. So, and that's all I have on this tit for tat. I'm very concerned, as I've said, that this is just going to continue to get worse and worse, particularly because it seems that Iran is targeting U.S. troops. And the more U.S. troops that die, the worse it's going to get for Iran. I mean, not that I think that, well, I think that the U.S. could bomb Iran a lot more than I think. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a military person. I don't know what weapons we have now, what we have left. I don't know what our situation. A lot of people that I listen to are saying the U.S. is going to run out of missiles, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that is true. I do know, in the Ukraine war, 2 or 3, I think 2 years in, everyone was warning that Ukraine was going to run out of missiles, and that the U.S. didn't have any to give them, and yet they're continuing. So, I don't really believe that claim as much anymore, and the United States doesn't seem to have a problem. They seem to have plenty. So I don't really put a lot of weight on that argument. I do know, obviously the United States has nuclear weapons, and that concerns me. That concerns me. They could target more Iranian leaders, but what's that going to get them? They've taken out so many, and Iran government is still, in power, and doesn't seem like there's a large portion of the population that wants to overthrow them. So I don't know what Trump's options are at this point. I mean, the United States hit Iran very hard in the first part of this war, and the Iranian government did not buckle and continued to fight back. And that is pretty much their position, and it has gotten stronger. They will not give up. They absolutely will not give up. They will keep fighting. So at some point, and I don't even know what we're fighting over. I mean, it seems like at this point, all we're fighting over is the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know, I assume, I mean, I guess if you just totally destroyed the southern part of Iran and nobody could live there, which, you don't want to do that with nuclear weapons. I mean, I don't think anybody should use nuclear weapons. I don't think anybody should have nuclear weapons. But, I mean, I don't know if they could use more powerful bombs or whatever. But I don't think, I mean, I think Iran has really been preparing for this for years, if not decades. They knew that this was their nuclear weapon, the Strait of Hormuz. So, I mean, most people that I listen to, again, they're not experts. Many of them are former military people or intelligence people, and they don't think the United States, certainly not, they don't think the United States can win this as far as the Strait of Hormuz. They don't think they can get it open. I don't know. But so far, Trump has not been able to. So what are we? This started February 28th. Today, this video, it's July 21st. We're still going, and he still has not been able to get it open. So clearly, it's not that easy. We need this conflict over. We need it over, and I wish Trump would get back to the negotiating table, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it does not matter. We just need peace. We just need peace. This is costing us billions and billions and billions of dollars. And for what? There's still no real clear objective. And there's no real clear reason why we got into any of this. And so anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm just babbling at this point. I'm going to do some other videos, but I am going to end this one right now. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.